Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. I am, as always, honored and excited to get to host another Power to Fly Chat and Learn virtual event. Now, today, as you can see, I'll get my weatherman hands down one of these days, y'all. As you can see here, we're going to be talking about from layoff to solopreneur, lessons from a tech leader on starting your own business. Now, I cannot wait to dive in. I think you're really going to love our speaker today. But before we do that, I want to go over some quick housekeeping items. This might be especially important if today is your first event with Power to Fly. And if that's the case, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you today. Now, my love is no less real for all my frequent flyers. So thank you all for all of your familiar names, faces, and avatars in the chat. I always love seeing y'all come and hang out on these events. So thank you so much for joining us. Now, whether today is your first event or your 50th with Power to Fly, the biggest thing you should know is participation. We want to make sure that you all feel empowered to really drive today's conversation, and we want to hear from you. So you are always encouraged to turn your cameras on if you'd like to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. Now, there is no rule, no need to be Instagram perfect, y'all. Just because I got real fancy and washed my hair yesterday does not mean that you can't come to us with your messy buns, your bathroom robes, coming to from your kitchen table. We do not care. We want to meet you where you are. So do not stand on ceremony, y'all. Just come learn with us. Now, we are recording today's event. Now, what that means for you is you don't have to take notes. You get to relax, enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with Lorraine, and not worry if you miss a resource or a podcast listing or anything. You don't have to worry about it. Now, let's say that Lorraine says something just mind-blowing, paradigm shifting. You cannot wait to tell a friend or a coworker or a relative. You don't have to. So what's going to happen is after today, we are live streaming to our YouTube. Hi, YouTube. And we're also recording this. And in about 4 to 5 business days, everybody that registered for today's event, regardless of whether you were able to make it or not, everybody is going to get an email from Power to Fly with a link to where you can watch this recording when we post it on our Power to Fly website. Now, obviously, it'll be available on YouTube a lot sooner. It's usually posted by the end of business today. But the YouTube is a great place to go check it out if you don't want to wait. You want to share this video right away. There's a whole section on there of kind of our greatest hits, some of our favorite chats. So I very much encourage you to check those out. But I also really want to stress, y'all, that the true motherlode, all of our free resources that we want to put in your hands, all of that's available on powertofly.com. So I very much recommend, the YouTube page is awesome, but I very much recommend that you check out our Power to Fly website just for all of the resources that we want to give you, y'all. We want to be there for you at every stage of your career. So start now. Go avail yourself of our free resources. Now, the last thing I want to encourage y'all to do is, again, participate, but this time by doing so in the chat. Now, I see we've already got people diving in here. I would love, love, love to see how far our global audience spreads. So please feel free to let us know where you're dialing in from. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So if you know whose land you're on, you're welcome to call it out. I would love, love, love to hear. Now, the last thing is I want to encourage you as you are in that chat, asking questions, networking with your fellow attendees or interacting with our speaker. I just want to make sure that we always refer to our code of conduct. Now, this is a whole big wall of text. It basically boils down to just don't be a jerk. Okay, that's all we ask. If you lead from a place of kindness and respect, it's pretty hard to go wrong. If you want details on this, please feel free to DM me. You can find my name, Meg Alexander, in the dropdown. Let's see, we've got Morgan from Colorado. Oh, and we're launching a poll right now. So I'm launching a poll because I want to know what brings you to today's chat. I want to know kind of where you're looking in on this subject. So if you want to vote, please feel free. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. So please feel free to chime in there. I want to make sure that we bring you value from today's event. All right, now, last but not least, before we go into our speaker bio today, I want to real quick introduce you to Lorraine Lee. Now, we have gotten to work with Lorraine in a variety of capacities. I've gotten the honor of hosting her at least twice. Y'all will have a fabulous time on today's event, okay? She's an amazing speaker. She has just talent for days, not to mention that she's about to be an upcoming author. So if you are at all curious about anything that Lorraine talks about today, I very much encourage you to check out her website. You can see the QR code right there. And so if you got any questions, please feel free to check that stuff out right there. Oh, and I forgot a visual descriptor. My name is Meg Alexander. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a 38-year-old white woman with pink and purple hair, blue glasses, and a green shirt on. All right, now to learn more about our speaker today, Lorraine K. is a keynote speaker as well as an author. Now, she's been a global keynote speaker. She's an instructor for Stanford's continuing studies. In fact, we are just talking about her next class that's getting started soon. She's also been an instructor for LinkedIn Learning, and she's the author of Unforgettable Presence: Get Seen, Gain Influence, and Catapult Your Career. That's going to be coming out next year. Now, Lorraine works with Fortune 100 organizations, global teams, as well as individuals to teach them how to supercharge their professional presence. Lorraine is recognized as a LinkedIn top voice and has more than 300,000 LinkedIn followers and a decade of experience as a founding editor at companies like LinkedIn and Prezi. Now, Lorraine, Prezi's where I first got to know you a bit and learn more about the amazing graphics you've got going on your screen. But outside of that, what would you like our audience members to know about you before we dive into questions?
That was a very thorough bio. Like I put in the chat, I'm in San Francisco, and I don't think I have anything else to add. I'm just super excited to be here with all of you today.
All right, excellent. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start going through questions. But the one thing, actually, you know what? Let's end our poll there so we can kind of get an idea and share the results. All right, so it looks like by a very slim majority, a lot of people are seeking inspiration for their own career pivot. So that's awesome.
Okay.
Second highest is curious about the realities of entrepreneurship. I think this is something that very much interests a lot of people. And then coming in third, looking for strategies to build resilience after a layoff. Y'all have my heart on this one. I have been there more times than I care to count. So I love this. Thank you all for chiming in. Now, the last thing I want to highlight before we jump into questions is the Q&A bucket. So if y'all will go into your Zoom toolbar, from there you should see an icon. It's like a thought or speech bubble with a question mark in it and has a red 9 next to it. So what that is the Q&A bucket. This contains some of the questions, some of the more popular questions that we were asked at registration. So what I encourage y'all to do, you took time out of your day to be here live. I want to give y'all the power to drive today's conversation. So what I'd like you to do, head on over into that Q&A bucket. And in every single question, there's a little thumbs up icon. It's on the lower left of each question. Utilize those buttons. It works just like likes on Facebook or an upvote on Reddit. And that's how I'm going to make sure we prioritize a lot of the questions being asked today. So tell me what's important to you so that way we can bring you that information and make sure that the time that you spend with Power to Fly and Lorraine K. is worth it. So please feel free, head on over there, upvote for any question that you are also interested in learning. And that way we can make sure that we bring you, like I said, true value from today's event. Okay, Lorraine, let's start us off with career transitions. Now, obviously, the subject is from layoff to solopreneur. So, what was your initial reaction to being laid off, and how did you navigate, especially the emotional aspects of that event?
I got laid off in November of 2022, so it's been a little bit of time now. And I remember getting a calendar invite on my phone, and it said, "Your conversation." And then in the calendar invite was a link out to a video of our CEO talking about the need for layoffs to happen. And because I had already been through a layoff, except actually laying people off right after I joined the company, I had to go through that. I thought, oh, okay, the managers are getting trained again and getting updated on needing to do another layoff. And then I realized, oh, only my manager and an HR person is on this invite. This is my layoff. And part of me expected it, right? There was a lot of tech layoffs happening at the time. Part of me was also still surprised. I was a high performer. I did great work. And, there's a little bit denial, like, oh, like me? I didn't expect this to happen. And so that was my experience. I stayed relatively calm the day it happened. Right after I got off the call with my manager and the HR person, that's when I started crying. And it just kind of hit me at that point. But I'm also someone who likes to take action and just keep moving things forward. So, I downloaded all my files, I did what I needed to do. And then I also was fortunate enough to be able to take some time to take a break to really think about what I wanted to do next. Because while I was at Prezi, I had started a bit of that side hustle doing speaking, becoming a LinkedIn learning instructor. And people had started asking me because of my presence on LinkedIn, did you ever think about becoming an entrepreneur? And personally, that was never a path I envisioned for myself. I was always very much like, I'm fine in corporate. I do well in corporate. I don't mind having a boss, all these things. And so I had to think a little bit more about that crossroads and what made sense for me at that point in my life.
Yeah. I think no matter whether somebody's been laid off or not, I think it is very easy to picture and to understand those, like a lot of those feelings. I don't know about you, but I've been laid off multiple times in different companies, completely different industries. And while while it is never a positive experience, it's never been anything where I was like, thank God I don't have to come back here. But there have been times where it was far more heartbreaking than others, like times where I was emotionally invested in that job in a different way than I kind of ever had been before. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that the emotional aspect of this can be discounted, because like that's something that can stick with you for a while. Like there, it's really
Yeah.
easy for that to kind of dig its hooks into your brain and very much affect, if not your mental health, then certainly your own like sense of self, sense of
Sure.
pride in your work. Like that's very easy to see. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people or layoffs have been described as traumatic experiences, right? These are experiences where we need to go through the different stages of grief and sort of process and not just necessarily jump right away to trying to find the next thing, but really like let those emotions go through us.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, granted, we generally, or at least I tend to speak from a very American centric perspective, but especially in a country where your healthcare is tied into your employment, that elevates the stress and the like that it intensifies so much that
Sure.
it makes a lot of sense that like this can be, even if you are prepared, like you have, 3 months of funds and all that kind of stuff, it can still be very, very traumatic. So thank you. Thank you so much for diving in there with us. Okay, we've got a ton of people starting to vote in to see what they want to talk about. So the one thing we're going to keep going through career transition, but then we're going to start with the kind of like your first advice for someone considering starting their own business. Before we get there, I want to know, how did you then decide from that moment, how did you decide to transition from corporate career to being a solopreneur? Now, just clarify, entrepreneur versus solopreneur, as we're using them, is entrepreneur, you're starting a business that probably will add people. Solopreneur, you are kind of the whole business.
Yeah, exactly. Like I
All right.
said, I had been posting more on LinkedIn over the few years before that. I had built kind of a presence, sort of like a personality, I guess, if you will. More of my brand was out there. And I decided that, and what you were saying before, Meg, like, layoffs, they are hard experiences, but they can often lead to new directions. Like you might often hear like, oh, layoff is a blessing in disguise. And so I figure like this might be the opportunity just where I am at in life. Like I had or I was like, going to get married soon. So thankfully I had sort of the support of my husband there and felt a little bit more secure financially through that with like insurance and all of that. We're also thinking about, family in the future. And so this felt like the opportune time to kind of see if it was something that could work and be feasible. And thankfully, last year was my first full year, and I did see traction, and I'm seeing even more traction this year, and it's growing. And last year was a really hard year in the economy for businesses, right? Lots of layoffs are happening. So I thought if I can succeed or show some traction in a year like that, it's bound to get better, right? Because also these things build up over time, the relationships, the word of mouth, all of that. So that was behind my decision. And again, I did not know if I would enjoy it. I didn't know if I would be able to stick with it because it does require sort of a different set of skills and motivation that you might have in a corporate job. But so far, so good.
Okay, so let's go back to those Q&As and kind of knock one of these out right here.
Sure.
Um, what advice would you give to someone considering starting their own business after a layoff? If someone is in the place that you were, what would you say to them, or what would you wish someone had said to you?
I would call out a few things. So one, you are not going to have a clear schedule, and it's something that you will need to be comfortable with. If you're someone who likes structure or you find it hard to motivate yourself without those external um, factors, it's going to be really hard to stick with your business and to make it sustainable. So that's one just thing to be aware of. Two, there's a lot of uncertainty with finances, with where your next client is coming from. So you also have to be okay with that uncertainty and sort of letting things play out. So, ideally you're going to have some savings that will allow you to kind of be flexible and like sort of let things play out. But those are the two things I think a lot of people don't think about. The third thing, or don't realize maybe how extreme it is. The third thing is a lot of people, and a lot of people, at least in tech, they, I think, have aspirations to be a solopreneur, to go out on their own. And they've had side hustles and they see sort of some success and traction there. There's a lot of self-reflection that needs to happen. I have this one friend, I've actually seen it with multiple people. Their identity is very tied to the company that they work for, and they're very proud of that. And there's a lot of prestige and sort of recognition that can come with working with like a big tech company, for example. So when you take that away, it can be very jarring to your sense of self-worth and just who you are, right? Especially if you've tied your whole career, right? Your decades-long career to a company, that can be a very startling change. So just to really think through that and decide if that is actually something that you would be okay with. And if you've already been laid off, maybe you don't have the choice, but if you're thinking about kind of leaving and doing your own thing, that is something I think important to keep in mind.
I love that call out. I very much appreciate that because I feel like there are a lot of people that whom that applies to, and you don't even have to know that about yourself, right? Having that emotional intelligence and recognizing that about yourself is wonderful, but not all of us have that. And so I think you're right. It's something to think about and realize that this could be something that affects you, even if you would not have said independently that you think that your self-worth is tied to your job. I think that is, I mean, it comes down to what you're talking about. Really know yourself, like understand, are you the kind of person that needs like outside direction and frameworks and all this kind of stuff? It's not to say you can't do it, but like your path is going to be a little bit different than somebody who maybe
Sure.
is a little more disciplined or
Yeah.
is used to making their own schedule. It's kind of like we talked about work from home, right? It's not for everyone. Not
Yeah.
everybody likes it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, what was some of the biggest let's talk about the biggest challenges that you faced when you were starting your learning solutions.
I think one of the most important things to do when you start is to hire additional help. I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive. I am like very fiscally responsible with my business, and my husband has helped me with this. Like at the beginning, I started getting all these ads from coaches who are like, make six figures right away in 1 month using our proprietary framework. I was so tempted to like buy one of those packages. But really, so first of all, it takes hard work and sort of just like don't fall victim to kind of those like get rich fast schemes. And I think also another part of it is you do need to spend a little bit of money. So I've talked to a lot of solopreneurs when I first started, and a lot of them, they had the same advice to get a virtual assistant as soon as you can to help you with those more mundane, just repetitive tasks. And that really allows you then to open up your time to focus on the things that only you can do. So instead of me, for example, reaching out to potential leads for speaking engagements, I'll give that to a VA. And then instead, I will focus on building the content or presenting the content. So just being a little bit more strategic about your time. I know it can be hard to let go. It can be kind of scary, like starting to spend money, right? But I think that can make a really big difference when you're getting started and also helping you feel a little bit less overwhelmed and feeling like you have some support.
I think that's a huge thing to call out is really think about your time, how long it takes to do these certain things. Because I feel like a lot of time we get kind of we either discredit or we get time blindness to it of how long it actually takes to do some of these things. Um, I I certainly wouldn't have a very good idea of this if I hadn't worked as a paralegal because then you have to bill for your incremental time in 6 minute intervals.
Wow.
So yeah, like I think it is something that good it's a good idea to spend a couple minutes if not like half hour or so just thinking about these kinds of issues because like it's small stuff like this could really trip you up really fast, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to get things moving and get that momentum.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, do you think that your advice would be any different for someone who wants to build a business if they are coming off a layoff versus if they are able to quit or make this their side hustle and then upgrade? Do you think that layoff specifically should do you think there's any instruction there that's layoff specific? Doesn't have to be. I'm just curious.
Yeah. I think the advice is pretty consistent. Maybe the one thing I would say is if you got laid off, to post about your layoff, and in that same post, talk about what you have in mind for your business. And I know it can feel a little bit taboo still, or a little bit uncomfortable sharing the layoff, but I think especially now again with all the tech layoffs, all the craziness that's been going on in the world, I think it has become very normalized to share your layoff. People want to support you, want to help you, and layoff posts usually get a lot of visibility. So it's kind of like a subtle way to, and that's what I did with my, you can find it on my LinkedIn as well. I think I put it in the featured section. I talked about my layoff. And then I talked about what I'm excited to do next. I said I'm not exactly sure exactly like the main channels of my business and the main revenue streams and all of that, but this is what I'm thinking of. And then people start reaching out like, oh, I could maybe use your help with this, or oh, I might not know someone who could use your services here. So just a really good way to kind of get that initial visibility that you are in fact thinking about doing this other thing or going to do this other thing. And your network is going to be so critical with that and finding those initial first clients.
Excellent. I love, love, love these responses here. Okay, let's talk about taking a side hustle and moving it into a full-time business. How did you manage to do that as a speaker while you were still employed full-time? This is something that I feel like a question a lot of people have. I mean, it's sort of a full-time job to get a new job, even if you're not going to be a solopreneur.
Yeah,
So how did you manage that transition for yourself?
sure. It worked well for me because Prezi at the time, which is where I was working, the side hustle I was building worked very well with the company's goals. So like me speaking gave the company publicity. But I think there's a lot of side hustles are just becoming so normal now. Hopefully your company is okay with that as long as it doesn't get in the way of your actual full-time job. But I think having a side hustle is a really great thing to it really empowers you because like the first time you make money outside of your day job, you're like, whoa, like what is this? Like, oh my gosh, I can be more in control of my own destiny. So I think like from a confidence perspective, that's something that's really great. At the same time, a side hustle doesn't have to be for everyone, right? You might be happy doing your 9 to 5 job, and then you have a lot of other things to do in your personal life afterwards. That's fine too. So I don't want anyone to feel pressure that they have to be doing a side hustle, but there are a lot of benefits to sort of building out your brand, building out another revenue stream, and just having a little bit more security and confidence in, whatever might happen with that full-time job.
Okay, yeah, I get you there. All right, I want to go back to we've talked a little bit about, what the layoff kind of tipped you into that. Was there a tipping point when you decided to go full time? Was there anything that really like sparked that for you, or was it more the same mechanics of the layoff just kind of pushed you in this direction?
It was the layoff, and I know that there are people who say, okay, I have a side hustle and I'm not going to quit until I'm making my salary. I barely made any money, honestly, with my side hustle. I call it a side hustle because I was doing it on the side, but like I was speaking a lot for free initially, and
Mhm.
I honestly I didn't make very much. So for me, like if I had waited till that moment, I don't know if I ever would have gotten there, like making back my full-time salary. I think what really helped me was a strong network, was building out my LinkedIn presence and having a certain skill set. And I think anytime you can feel comfortable on camera talking, I think that's a very important skill set. It's one that I'm always talking to students and clients and like just how important it is to get comfortable being on video because that opens the doors to things like speaking, podcasts, being interviewed for articles, lots of opportunity opened up for me. And I know for other people too, when you can get comfortable on camera. So I think even regardless of a side hustle, it's just like a good skill to have.
And honestly, I feel like it's one of those skills, and I do this, I'm very guilty of this. I assume that if I can do it, it can't be that hard, and most people can do it, and it's not that special of a skill. And so I think that I'm sure I'm not the only person that does this, and not just when it comes to things like being on camera or being in a speaking role or public facing, whatever. Um, I do think that when we're taking stock of these kind of things and trying to see like where our skills are and what transferable skills we might have, it very much benefits to try to go to an outside perspective in addition to your own kind of self
Sure.
reflection. Because truly, like I'm sure I'm not the only one that kind of discredits their own skills a lot. So think about
Yeah.
that, y'all.
Yeah. And that reminds me too of I'll just shift gears slightly to LinkedIn. When people ask me like, oh, I'm nervous to post on LinkedIn, or what do I post about? And especially if any of you in the audience are thinking about becoming a business owner, LinkedIn is going to be a really great place to build that visibility. But people get nervous like, oh, if I post about this, like, isn't this really obvious? No, it might be obvious to you, but you have a certain set of skills, expertise that is going to be helpful and new to someone else. So if any of you are sort of hesitant posting, getting your voice out there, this is my just push to say it's not obvious to everyone and to take that first step in posting.
Love it. Okay. All right. Last kind of drill down here. How did you prepare financially to make that transition from full-time employment to self-employment? I think this is something that a lot of people find scary, and it's very easy to feel like, well, I don't know how to do that. So how did you assess, your budget, or, what kind of thought went into that for you?
Yeah, a few different things. So the first one was you have to just track your finances. Like how much have you been spending each month? What are you spending on? Can you cut back certain things? How long can you go? Keeping up your existing lifestyle. And you do like a bunch of different calculations and different iterations to understand what sort of runway you have. So that was the first thing. The second thing was I also gave myself a specific period of time. So I said, okay, I'm going to give myself a year, and then I'm going to revisit with my husband at the end of the year and see, is he comfortable? Am I comfortable? Do we see that this is something that might be successful and something that we want to continue? Because if you have a partner, like it's not just your business, it affects other people as well. And so having sort of that time frame where you can go back or sorry, think ahead and just revisit like the year in review or the 6 months in review and be honest with yourself, having those checkpoints, I think is really helpful as well, because you can keep going years and years, right? And maybe it's not working, but you haven't really given yourself a time to check in. So I think having those check-ins are key.
I like that. And it's key to remember that it's okay to have to like set appointments for stuff like this. Like if you know what I mean? Like make it a priority, make it something that you are going to hold yourself to. Because you're right, it's very easy to kind of do the day by day, things slip, or they just, the deadlines just sort of don't feel real. So I think that's good. That's a really good call out there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about some of your pivotal moments. Based on the votes in the Q&A bucket, a lot of people want to know how you secured opportunities as an instructor with LinkedIn Learning and Stanford Continuing Studies. So let's talk through those. How did those opportunities come to be?
Sure. Combination of network and existing skill set. With LinkedIn Learning, I was a founding editor at LinkedIn, so I worked there for 6 years. So I know a lot of people at LinkedIn. There is an application form online, and I don't know how, I'm sure they're getting so many applications, but that's one path you can choose. Then you can also be a little bit more strategic about it. You can follow or connect with the content managers at LinkedIn who are deciding what courses get made. And then as you connect with them, they will start seeing your content, and they might reach out because they see, oh, you have an interesting take on this, or oh, I see you have an expertise on this. So you want to think a little bit outside the box. So for example, connect, follow with them, see what they're posting about, engage with them if you can. And then the third piece was you have to be comfortable, ideally, on video. So LinkedIn Learning, like they did ask me, can you send us some video clips of you speaking? And they will be able to coach you a little bit and give you advice, but it helps, right? If you can say, oh, I am comfortable in front of the camera and here's some of my work. So that was LinkedIn Learning. Stanford Continuing Studies, again, networking through past gigs I've done. I applied online, and I also know another professor at the Stanford GSB school. And so he also helped put in a good word for me. And I met him through another speaking engagement. So the network, again, is so key to helping you find those opportunities, helping push things through. But all of these do have general application pages as well that you can submit to.
Okay, love this. All right. What do you think have been the most pivotal moments of your growth as a solopreneur? Have there been moments that have really hit you? Do you think it's like an after the fact, looking back kind of assessment? What do you think has been like those linchpin moments?
Pivotal moments. I think posting that layoff post actually gave me a lot of confidence, seeing how much people wanted to help me. And I feel like that confidence piece is really critical because it is such a hard journey. So just see the support, I think that helped me have the confidence, like, okay, I'm going to make this work. I think getting your first clients is also really pivotal. Okay, this is actually happening now. I'm moving forward. I have a business. And then I think when you start getting your first inbound requests as well, that's also like from non-network people, I think that's also really pivotal. Oh, okay, the content is resonating, or people are seeing me, or people are inviting me to things. And I think it's just it's a bunch of small things, I think. There wasn't like a huge, like, oh my gosh, this is gonna work because of this, but it's like, oh, these little moments add up and like they just kind of take you along the way.
Yeah, it seems like kind of little moments where different facets of it are being validated or proven.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
very
Yeah.
cool.
Hmm.
Oh, that sounds like an incredible high to be chasing, to be quite
Yeah.
frank. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Somewhat negative question.
Okay.
Do you have a setback that you faced where you thought, even for momentarily, this isn't going to work. I shouldn't have done this. Like, have you ever had a setback that caused you to have those second thoughts?
I haven't had explicit second thoughts yet.
Okay.
I definitely had days where I'm tired. And I'm just gonna say, like, I have been working so many weekends the past few weeks, like writing the book, editing, just like speaking gigs coming up. I have to prepare. And that should all be done in an ideal world during the week, my actual work week. But things come up and I'm just having to do it on the weekends. I don't think that's sustainable. I don't want that to be my future, but I am working more, a lot more than I did in corporate. So I definitely feel tired and I'm like, huh. I don't feel like though I don't want to do it. Like because it's my work and it's my business, you do feel sort of that renewed energy and excitement. Like I'm okay every now and then working on the weekend because this is contributing to my business and I'm building something, right? It's not for someone else.
Yeah.
I also think a successful quality of an entrepreneur, solopreneur, is a bit of naive confidence or naive optimism, as I like to call it, where you have to kind of believe that it's going to work. If you're someone who has a lot of self-doubt and is just not having a lot of confidence, it is going to be hard to push through those more difficult times. If you're someone who kind of hopes and more optimistic that things are going to work out, you are just confident that things will come your way and that it will hopefully work out in the future. I feel like that kind of personality is a bit better suited for solopreneur entrepreneurship because, to your point, Meg, like there are so many hard things that happen along the way. So you sort of have to like naively be like, it's okay, like I'll get through this, or it's okay, like something better is gonna come along, or this didn't happen because like a bigger opportunity is coming. So I feel like those things have been helpful for me. Not everyone has it. I didn't do any, I don't know why I am like this. But I feel like this is a trait I notice in a lot of fellow solopreneurs, entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of, I feel like we hear a lot about like growth mindset and abundance, operating from a place of abundance kind of thing. And that absolutely feels true here. But the other thing that feels true is instead of giving into paranoia, you sort of need to fall into pronoia, which is this idea that everything is going to work out in your favor and there's nothing you can do about it. It's this idea of fate, but like it's going to happen and it's going to be positive because
Yeah.
like if you're going to assume that that something is going to happen and it's going to be negative, not a self-fulfilling prophecy, but at minimum you are stressing yourself out and maybe worrying more than you need to or kind of coloring other experiences. So I like this idea of like no. Don't fall into paranoia, fall
Yeah.
into pronoia. Like
Yeah.
just decide it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Better
Yeah.
days are coming. It's too late to avoid them. Like it's a thing, right? This kind of ominous positivity, at least for me, does the trick.
Yeah. Is that
Um,
like an actual word or is that your own take on the word?
Pronoia. Oh no, it's a real word.
Oh,
There's
okay.
I
Okay.
learned about it a couple
Cool.
like 5 or 6 years ago. There's a song by Carly something called Pronoia. It's a
Oh, okay.
very earwormy song. It's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Learn something new.
Heck yeah. Okay, we've got a lot of questions that have been pretty highly voted. So let's go to another one of those from the bucket.
Sure.
What are the key skills that you think are essential for success as a solopreneur within the training and speaking industry?
Mm. Well, foundationally, you have to, I think, be a strong public speaker because
Okay.
you are external facing, right? So like honing that skill, figuring out different ways to engage your audience, I think are really key. I think there needs to be a comfortability with networking and like building those relationships when people come up to you in person, or even building those relationships virtually, because I think so much of the speaking industry is built on relationships, or people want to bring you back if they like you and they feel like they know you. And so one interesting change that has happened with me from corporate versus now is like in corporate, I was pretty much, well, very early corporate, I was like personal and professional life completely split. And then I got a little bit more relaxed and I realized, okay, there can be some overlap. And now I'm like texting tons of people and like, other people in my network, clients sometimes, friends who I've met who are other solopreneurs. There's a lot of crossover that happens. So I just, again, just to emphasize the importance of relationship building, I think, in the training and development space. And then there's a certain, I think whether you're in training and development or something else, but like sales. So being able to upsell things. I know it doesn't sound great, but like just to be able to
No,
like
but it is,
show,
right?
in
Yeah.
a helpful way. Like I'm not just hard selling you, but like here's a program that I think based on my good listening and understanding of like what your organization needs that can be helpful for you. So I'd say those are important skills. And I honestly think they go across sort of like whatever you're doing. But when I
Yeah.
think about training and development and like public speaking, those three things are things that I think have helped me become more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're not the kind of person that wants to talk to people, I mean, I don't think most of those people go into training and speaking, but like if it's something that maybe is a little bit scary for you, then maybe something you should test out, and try and hone your skills in, prior to making this leap into the field. But yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Honestly, in a lot of ways, it sort of reminds me of like waitressing and bartending, in that you kind of have, if not single serve, like even if not like single serve, like relationship interactions with these people, but like you kind of want to make that good first impression. You want them to like you enough to ask you back. And so I do think you're right. Being able to be yourself fully makes it a lot easier to go out and try and sell yourself, for lack of a better word for it, and kind of sell people on your personality and the experience they're going to have, or the kind of skills that you bring to the table. So yeah, I think these are good ones. These are really, really good advice here. I like this. All right, we have about 20 minutes left in today's event. So if y'all have questions, please, please make sure that you send them in. If you want, I'm keeping my eyes in the chat as well. So I think I've pulled all questions that have been asked in the chat, but if you have another one, please, please feel free. You can send in questions into that Q&A bucket. It's super, it'll be a lot easier for us to answer questions there, but I also have an eye on the chat just in case, y'all. Okay, key skills, blah, 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 blah. Okay, this is a good one. How do you manage some of the various aspects of your business, from marketing to delivery of services? Now, we talked a little bit about having a virtual assistant, but what was it like for you when you were trying to figure out like how you were going to manage these different aspects that are important, but might not be the core of like you performing for a client?
Still figuring it out, honestly. There is a lot of moving pieces. And so the VAs I do think have been really instrumental in that. And there are also people I've worked with to help improve systems and processes, because yes, it's important for you to execute on the work, but if you want to scale, if you want to save some time, right? So you have some time for your personal life too, and not always working on the business, that foundational piece of the processes is very, very important. And so like one thing I did this year, for example, I don't know if any of you have heard of Notion. Notion has been really helpful in being sort of a business repository. So instead of like disparate Google Docs, I now have one place where people can see all the Google Docs, the resources, et cetera, the checklists that are needed within each sort of bucket of things that people are working on. I also downloaded Slack this year. I was initially doing things on WhatsApp, and then it just got unwieldy because it's hard to keep track and I have multiple VAs. And so adding some of those tools has been really helpful in helping me scale, and just work smarter, I think. Yeah. Well, did I answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. We've talked about a bit about some of the tools that you've used. We've talked about
Yeah.
Notion. Are there any other resources or tools that have been very valuable to you? Things that you've really come to rely on or have solved snags for you?
Another tool that might be interesting to this group here is one that I use called Online Business Automator. And if any of you are interested, I can send you a referral link later, and I think you get a little discount. That has been a really nice platform because it combines my emails. It has a course hosting platform if you're trying to create courses. It has a membership platform if you're also trying to have a membership program. And it's all in one place versus I think with a small business owner, sometimes it can be a bit disjointed. Like, oh, I have to use this product for one thing, this product for another thing, this product for another thing. And so OBA has been really helpful in bringing it all in one place. It's very customizable. So what my calendar lives on there, right? So I can customize every single email that people get through that calendar, for example. You can track leads or opportunities won, opportunities lost, a lot of different things. So I really enjoyed it for having one place to kind of track all these really important things. And then also your VAs can access your email through that without getting your password. So if that's of concern to you, security, that's also a nice benefit there. So yeah, just let
Yeah.
me know on LinkedIn if you're interested.
Yeah, of course. I love this. Let's see. We've got a ton of people who are agreeing with you that they love using Notion. We did get a question in the chat here that I thought was really good. Ramona had asked, how and when do you advise that you pull back from pursuing a lead or interest? No one enjoys a pushy salesperson. I struggle with this a lot. So for you, how do you handle this?
Yeah. I actually talked a little bit about this. So every once a month or so, I will publish a solopreneur reflection post on LinkedIn. So all of you can check that out. I have a specific hashtag you can follow too. But I talked about this because I randomly had this influx of coaching clients the other month. I don't advertise that I do coaching. It's not the main thing I do. I just take on a select number of clients, but an influx came through. And I was doing all these discovery calls and I would follow up with them. And they were all really excited during the call. And then I wouldn't hear from them. And I was like, odd, what's going on? And so I do think there's kind of that balance. For me, I'll follow up 1 to 2 times. I think for coaching clients, especially as well, you like for coaching, they have to be motivated to want to do the coaching. So for me, it's
Yeah.
like a little bit easier to do less follow-up because I'm like, if you're not ready and now's not a good time, it's not going to be a good experience. It's going to be like start and stop. And it's just so for other clients too, like a consulting client, actually my biggest consulting client to date, they were interested and then they stopped responding. They stopped responding. And so I just decide, okay, I'm gonna let it go and they're gonna come to me when this is their priority. And then a month
Yeah.
later, they come to me and we wrap things up in a week, right? Like we get everything sorted. I think it is valuable to follow up. I think it helps keep you top of mind. There are plenty of reasons why people don't respond. They don't have the answer for you yet. They just missed it, right? So there's plenty of reasons. So I think there's still value in following up. I think maybe like 1 to 2 additional follow-ups is good. And
Mhm.
one line that I use in my emails that might be helpful for all of you is I will say, I'll plan to follow up with you next Tuesday if I don't hear from you before then. And that gives you a reason instead of just arbitrarily like, hi, checking in. Like it gives you a reason like, oh, I said I was going to follow up Tuesday, so I'm following up Tuesday. And same thing when you end your discovery calls. When would be a good time to check in? Or um, when would you like to chat again about this? Or like, when will you have talked to the team? So just getting a little bit more confirmation on deadlines and dates makes it feel a little less awkward that you're just like constantly checking in and it's like, oh no, we discussed this date and that's why I'm following up.
I like that a lot. I actually use that when I was like applying for jobs. I especially if I'd had like an interview or talked to anybody like on the phone, I would send them an email and just say like, "Hey, it was so great to talk to you today, blah blah blah. I'm gonna follow up with you. I'm sure you're really busy right now. I'll follow up with you next week. If you prefer that I check in every 2 weeks, just let me know and I can bump it back to that." And so that way they know that you're incredibly interested in whatever the opportunity is. You're setting that expectation. You can follow up on it, which then like looks good on you. But also when you're telling them like I'm gonna follow up if I don't hear from you,
Yeah.
then it makes it a lot easier for them to be like, hey, I don't have any more news. Try next week.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
less of a like, I don't have news for you, so why would I reach out to you if I don't have news? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really nice framing too.
Thank you. Okay, what else? Oh, this person wants to know what were the first few things that you did or created when you started so as to become more visible and network with potential clients, like putting up a professional profile or a website. So let's talk through this. Obviously, your LinkedIn was a massive part of this for you. But were there any other steps or steps within that that were taken strictly to make sure that you were more visible and open to clients?
One thing I have been doing, and this was way before I started my business, but I have an annual newsletter that I send to just people in my network over the years, updating them on what I'm doing. And so I think if you can gather a bunch of emails, hopefully, this is you stay in touch with them over the years, but if not, I think that's a really good way to let people know what you're up to, right? Especially if you don't have like the LinkedIn presence yet, email is really great just to say, hey, hey, just checking in, like wanted to give you a life update. This is what's going on with me. I think that can be helpful. I did update my website. I'm still updating my website every now and then. Updating my website was helpful, but I really think, honestly, that updating your LinkedIn profile is going to be more valuable at first before your website. Because a lot of people, when you reach out to them, if they want to learn more about you, they're not looking for your website, they're typing your name into LinkedIn first. And so having a really strong LinkedIn presence is key. And there's this stat I always like to share from the RAIN group. And they said that 82% of buyers will look up a seller on LinkedIn before replying to prospecting efforts. So if you, the seller, are reaching out to someone like, oh, I would love to come in for a speaking engagement, they're going to click on my profile first before responding, see who I am, see if I'm legitimate, and then choose whether or not to respond. And I think people just go to LinkedIn, it's become such a big platform now. They just will go to LinkedIn before checking you out on your website. So I think actually LinkedIn presence is most important first.
I like that. Okay. Yeah, good idea. I mean, it kind of makes sense too, because like in the Etsy era, if you are going to have somewhat of a niche, like you want to put yourself in the places where there's going to be a lot of digital foot traffic. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense that you, as opposed to focusing so much on your own website and then trying to drive traffic there, go where the traffic already is.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I like that. Okay. All right. This is a really good question. We have about 12 minutes left, so we'll probably be able to get to like two or three more questions before time runs out today. So if y'all still have a question, please feel free to ask it, throw it in the chat, or throw it in the Q&A bucket. Oh, we did get one follow-up from Sue. Sue wants to know, when you give a specific amount of days, like what should be kind of your rule book, like 3 to 5 days based on a discussion or a project. I did check-ins weekly because it was job related. I was trying to, find out where my application was in the process. So I would do check-ins weekly, and then like if it was slowing down or if they were like, yeah, there's a bunch of moving pieces, then I'd say, okay, I'll check in with you every 2 weeks. But, for more time sensitive things, like for you, what was your general rule of thumb for this?
Usually keep it to a week as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
wanted to like make it sure, like definitely make it clear that like I'm interested and I'm following up on this and I'm like actively engaged, but also like other people have a bunch of demands on their time. And when
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
recognize that up front, they're
Yeah.
far more willing to make concessions and help you out than if you were to kind of like overextend your use of their time and then have to be like, and thank you for your time and blah blah blah. So
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think a week is good.
my anxiety, man, it's good for something, right? Okay. What do you think is next for Rise Learning Solutions and your career? Obviously, the book is coming out. That's incredibly exciting. But what do you see kind of on your horizon as you look out towards the future?
I think the book is going to be really important for my business, and I'm really excited to grow the speaking part of my business. And I've gotten, a lot of feedback from other authors that it does do that. So I'm really excited there. And I think there's going to be things that come my way that I didn't even, think was a possibility. So I'm really excited for that. I think also I want to get a little bit more strategic about the things that I focus on. I think especially in year one, a little bit more in year two as well. You're just kind of experimenting, you're taking things, you're or taking on projects, right? Just to see, do I like it? Is this a good path for me to pursue? Like, should this be like a revenue stream? And there's just a lot of experimentation going on. So I'm hoping to maybe formalize the things I take on a little bit more, say no to more things, right? It can be so easy to take everything on because you're also like, I need to make money and I want to make money and this opportunity is coming to me. You're not in a feeling very secure, even like 2 years in, right? Because it's not consistent yet. So just for those in the audience, I hear like 3 to 5 years is kind of when you know that your business is something sustainable. It can be something that will keep going on in the future. So yeah, even 2 years in, you're like, maybe taking things that maybe aren't a good use of your time. So I think by saying no to more things and also being clear on what my main pillars are of my business, that's what I'm looking forward to in the coming years. And I think as you get more focused, other sort of bigger opportunities within those buckets will come your way.
I like that. I think that's very good advice because it can be very easy to kind of spread yourself too thin or feel like this is the only way I'm going to be able to make money is by continuously stretching myself, which isn't bad, but you kind of got to think about how far you're stretching and are you getting further and further and further from what you wanted your business to be or
Exactly.
what you wanted your core clients to be or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got two more amazing questions that I want to try and get to. We have 9 minutes, so we're going to do our best. This first person wants to know, how could I succeed in creating a public brand as an introvert? I don't currently have one, and I'm very like this person sounds like they are just not extra not extroverts at all. So
Yeah.
if you are someone who is just not that overarching like outgoing social butterfly,
Yeah.
is it possible to create a brand, and if so, how do you do that?
Well, I love this question. Good news. I'm an introvert. I'm here right now. And I talk about introversion a lot on LinkedIn as well. I think it's perfectly achievable. I think one of the strengths of introverts is that you are a strong writer. So use that to your advantage, writing thoughtful posts, newsletters, blogs, like whatever it is that makes sense for your brand. Take advantage of that. Introverts are also so good at connecting with people, one-on-one relationships. So you might not feel comfortable in a huge group setting, but hey, like video is wonderful for that. You have that one-on-one opportunity to meet really whoever you want all over the world. And so lean into those strengths. I also have a LinkedIn learning course. Actually, I'll pitch two. One on how to stand out as an introvert. So that might be interesting to this person. And then I also have a LinkedIn learning course on navigating life after a layoff. So encourage you all to check those out. But yeah, it's completely doable. I know so many introverts who are also thought leaders, personal brands, or like public facing people on LinkedIn. It's just about finding what makes most sense for you, given your strengths and what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, of course. I mean, your personal brand is basically what you want people to say or know about you when you're not
Yeah.
in the room.
Yeah.
So, yeah, creating that as an extrovert can it's in some ways it can be easier, but in other ways, like that sort of it can sometimes get you only seen as that extrovert. So if you are thinking that you are having a rough time with this as an introvert, I can promise you you're not the only one. It is absolutely a problem for us extroverts as well. Okay, we have a really good one. I think this will probably wrap us up. Something I'm struggling around right now is how much to charge, especially coming from a regular 9 to 5 job and switching to be a solopreneur or contractor. Not many folks like to share how much they're charging. Do you have any tips? So obviously to your comfort level, how
Yeah.
did you start looking at these issues? Because this is something, whether you're going from like whether you're going to kind of just hang out a shingle as, I'm a contract, like, project manager or whatever, to something more maybe intangible, like speaking gigs and that kind of thing. How did you go about evaluating this?
I think what the maybe most common piece of advice is take your yearly salary, divide up, and that's what your hourly rate is. So that's to maybe more or less give you your hourly rate, add some things on top of that to like accommodate for like insurance and any extra expenses that you're not getting covered as a solopreneur. So that's one strategy. The other thing that has worked really well for me is finding people in my network who are in similar places as me or maybe a few steps ahead. And by you sharing your price or like what you're looking for or being vulnerable, like, right? Like sometimes to your point, Meg, like people are not always comfortable sharing. But when you build that relationship, when you are saying, okay, I want to charge 1,000 for this, or I want to charge 5,000 for this, like, what are you seeing? And there's also ways to frame it, not like, what are you charging, but like, what have you seen as like the range from other people in our space? Like, that's an option too. But a lot of what I learned was through, yeah, talking to people who have done this, and also to just remember that it can be kind of arbitrary. Like people are just throwing things out there and seeing what sticks sometimes too. Like that does happen. And sometimes you'll throw something out and it'll stick and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like I can be charging a lot more. Or someone will turn you down. And maybe it's just that company and that budget, right? But maybe another company will be willing to pay for it. So it's kind of, I wish there was like a more surefire way I could say this is how you find out, but it is sort of experimentation. It's talking to other people, and it's being willing to kind of throw out the crazy price out there and seeing, if it's something that maybe you're not super sure if it makes sense for you, throw it out, see what happens. So it's a bunch of all those things mixed together.
Okay. Quick reminder, y'all, I do love when we're connecting in the chat. We can't allow people to post links for other services. I'm sorry. It's just, services that we are offering, we can't allow you to like advertise here. I'm so sorry. I totally understand. If y'all want to connect on LinkedIn, that's fine. We just can't let you post those links here. So apologies. Okay. Last thing that I want to ask you. If people only take one thing from today's event, what do you want that one thing that they remember to be?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things, Meg.
I know. This is always a hard question. You're not the only
Okay.
person that I ask this, and then they're like, that's hard. And I'm like, but it's a good one, I promise.
Okay, what I'm going to say is build your LinkedIn presence. I think whether you decide to go back into corporate or whether you decide to be a solopreneur, it will serve you well on either path.
I like it. Okay. All right, y'all. In the time we have left, I just want to say a huge thank you to Lorraine. This has been absolutely invaluable, not just for the audience. Obviously, like their participation and stuff has been raucous this whole time. I love it. But this has been really wonderful to get to talk to you and kind of peel back the layers and to see, like, catch up with you now and see what you're doing. Because truly, y'all, we got introduced to Lorraine via Prezi. So I think this is really cool. And another example of how that networking aspect can very much work for you. But this was really great. I cannot wait to hear more and see the book. Like, this is going to be so exciting.
Thank you
If people
so
want
much.
to follow along or want to know more, like what else can we pitch them before they leave?
Yeah, so I think you have all my links, so please connect with me on LinkedIn. This is the QR code, but lorrainekaylee.com/book if you want to sign up for book updates. And you can also, if you pre-order, you get some bonuses, TBD, but bonuses that will come if you pre-order and just submit your receipt at the bottom of the page. You have all my LinkedIn learning courses. I have 18 courses, so a lot of different options. Another good one that's popular is how self-motivation. So that's good for any of you also trying to get this solopreneur thing going. And maybe one more resource, lorrainekaylee.com/LinkedIn-guide. It is the first part of a 40+ page ebook I created around LinkedIn best tips, best practices, all of that. So you'll find everything on my website, on my LinkedIn. So
Excellent. All right, y'all. We are at the end of time today, but I want to say again a big thank you to our audience members as well. I mean, obviously, I love that you come to these events because I have a job because you come to these events. But I love that you come to these events even more because you just took 60 minutes out of your day to do something positive for yourself and your career. That is not easy. So whether you are a little treat person or not, just listen to Meg. Okay, give yourself a pat on the back, gold star, cookie, Starbucks drink, whatever is, your drug of choice in the hellscape that can be 2024. So I very much encourage y'all to do that for yourselves. Now, whether this was your first event with Power to Fly or your 50th, I sincerely hope that you will be back here sooner rather than later. And for the rest of the day, week, and weekend, go out and have the day you deserve. We'll be back here with great programming next week and cannot wait to see many more of you. Bye, y'all.
thank you.